dashboard to the frame of the car. You've got this part here which held like all the electrical connectors, all the trims, and then this T30 here which held pretty much everything else. Oh, and also we've got a little upgrade to do as well whilst we're there, but we'll get onto that. So we're on the home straight from now, putting the dashboard back in, getting all the bolts back in and all the electrical connectors back in. I actually find putting the dashboard back in easier than taking it out, because now I know where everything goes and where everything came out. The main rule for doing this is make sure you do it all in the same day, else you'll start forgetting where everything went. Okay, so we're nearly there. This has been painful, this dashboard. Probably one of the actually the worst dashboard that I've ever changed. But now we're on to the upgrades. So this is the air conditioning sort of unit, the control. It powers all the heated seats and everything like that. Now, when they changed the Range Rover to the 2018 model, they actually changed this for a screen kind of like that. And to my surprise, actually, as well, this is looks like a proper DIY job. It's literally wood. This is actually wood. It's anyway, that's beside the point. Now, effectively, this, well, what's inside this should be plug and play. If I can open it, yes, of a new AC display, which is a full screen, which will replace this one. Hopefully this is plug and play. I'm going to install it now. We'll put everything back together and then we'll test it out. Fingers crossed this works. Let's do it. Now, sometimes aftermarket parts, when they claim to be plug and play, sometimes they're not. But this one literally only had one plug to plug in the back, and we just gotta hope that afterwards it plays. But yeah, this was definitely one of the easiest things to install, and no, you do not have to remove the full dashboard to replace it. But that screen on the bottom has really updated the interior. Next up, the steering wheel can go back on, being careful that I put it back on the way it came off. And the cream / whitey coloured airbag, which I can't obviously connect up yet because I don't have the connector, so we'll just rest that in place. Next up, it's the seats. I was expecting the seats to be really heavy, but actually, for how big they are, they weren't too heavy. And there we go, one replaced dashboard and almost finished steering wheel airbag with the upgraded AC controls. But what do we think of that airbag? Can I get away with that colour? Time check, 11 minutes past 2 in the morning. This definitely took way longer than I expected, but look at it. Isn't that just satisfying? I am battered, and this has absolutely battered me. What are we thinking, though, of the cream airbag on the steering wheel? I'm not so sure. I don't actually think it looks out of place with the sort of light roof lining that we got going on, but I don't know, maybe it will look better blacked out. I'm pretty sure you can get these coloured, or we may have to buy a new one, and the black ones are a lot more expensive than the cream ones for some reason. But let me show you this. Let's turn it on. And check this out, we've got the screen at the top as usual, and now the screen at the bottom. How much more modern does that look? We can control the climate control, we can control the heated seats, not sure what that is, and the rear climate control and the rear heated seats as well. And these are the twisty little knob things, but that is looking a lot better. But as you guys may have seen, the job is not 100% complete yet.
Don't look back. My mama always used to say you'll find another. Endless love is coming, I'll be sure of that. But it's so
You know what? The more I look at it, the more I think I'm gonna need to get a black airbag. I don't know, I'm kind of going off it now. But yeah, as I mentioned, we're still not completely done in here because we do need these rear seat belts because they're completely locked out. And of course, these airbag connectors, which means that with both of them, we're still gonna have this airbag light pop on the dashboard. Now, I did mention that will pop back with the door situation, and some of you have left a few suggestions. So a few of you have mentioned that maybe this door has came from a different model Range Rover. Well, actually it's came from a 2018 model Range Rover. But I can assure you the doors and the arches are exactly the same, so it should just bolt on, no problem. The other theory is that this door could be bent or twisted, but it seems to all line up at the top and line up all here as well. There's no other issues with it apart from this part here, so I can't see it being bent or twisted. Now, I've had a little play around with the hinges on both doors and got them to sort of the best that I could get them, and it is a lot better. The line on the bonnet lines all the way along here into this door now and continues on to here. So the panel lines all do line up, and now you can see that the door is just about, well, pretty much bang on throughout the whole of the car. It is literally just this part here, and to be honest, instead of buying a full new rear quarter, I'm pretty sure a body shop could pull that out. Which then leads me on to the problems with the intercooler and the brackets behind the bumper. Today, the Range Rover is going to be getting a little facelift. Now, the regular subscribers will know when I rebuild a car, I like to upgrade the parts where possible. This is an example on the C63. We bought a Black Series kit instead of buying like-for-like parts. And unfortunately, yet fortunately for me, we have a few damaged parts on the front end, which kind of gives us the excuse to upgrade this thing. But before we get onto that, we've got a bit of unfinished business with the interior. Now, even though we replaced the dashboard to change the passenger side airbag and also the driver's side airbag, there are some parts that we missed, and one of them being the rear seat belts. These locked out during the accident and they need to be replaced or reset. Now, to remove the rear seat belts was actually a bit of a pig. There's a bolt at the bottom of the belt, and then the whole mechanism is stored almost in the top parcel shelf. And to access the bolt at the bottom of the belt, I had to remove the whole rear seats. And with these being heated and also electrically adjustable, you can imagine they were fairly heavy and annoying to remove.
Look, I think it's time you start using your common.
But with the rear bench out, I could finally access the bolt at the bottom of the seat belts.
Confidence, that's right. Confidence, yeah.
With those bolts removed, I've just got to access the mechanism part, which is stored underneath this trim here. And believe me, to get to that wasn't easy. Pretty much the whole rear panels and trims all had to come out to access that mechanism. And when it finally gained access to it, there was only one bolt holding this seatbelt mechanism in.
I'm on a big mission. My whole team got a plate up in the kitchen, yeah.
Once I'd undone that bolt, I can pull the mechanism out. There's one airbag electrical connector connected to the seatbelt mechanism. I can unclip that, and there we go, seatbelt out. Time for a quick hoover up and a quick freshen up with the Cloudburst spray. I use this stuff all the time. It gives such a long-lasting scent to your car, your house, the office, your shoes, whatever it may be. All of them replicating your favourite aftershave. I've put a link for all the Cloudburst stuff in the description box below, so if you stink, or your car stinks, or your shoes or your office stink, or something stinks, then spray it with this. Honestly, it's so good, and it saved us during that Monaco trip, keeping all our cars smelling fresh. Now, would you believe I had to strip out pretty much the whole rear of the interior just to get the seatbelts out, which were held in by one single bolt. And I found that they actually have another little baby battery here, which I assume is just the leisure battery for all the electronics inside the car. But wow. Now, the original plan with these was to send them to a company who actually reset them, and then they send them back. You can plug in and then they're all good to go. But actually, when I got them out and I checked the part number, which is on the side here, I found a set for 100 quid. So I thought, well, why just save the hassle? But that just means I'm just gonna have to remember how it all went back together by the time the new seatbelts arrive. Next up is the airbag. We know that these are pretty expensive, going from £100 upwards, and I didn't really want to spend that just to change the colour of it. So we've got Chris, who is an expert at painting. As you can see, he painted his car, well, it was supposed to be green, turned out yellow. This is going to be black. So
this is going to be blue then, yeah?
Yeah,
You want it blue, is what
black,
you're saying?
Black,
blue.
please. And there we go, one airbag transformed from cream to black, and it cost me absolutely nothing because Chris is not getting paid. So before I put the airbag back in, I've wired in some new connectors because if you remember, when we changed the dashboard and the airbag, I had to break these connectors to get them out of the steering wheel because they sort of melted in. These ones are actually from a Mercedes. I couldn't find Range Rover plugs. Don't ask me how I knew how these would interchange. I just found them on eBay. They look the same. I hope they work. They've just got a plug into the back of this airbag here, and then that should be it all for the airbag situation, minus the light on the dashboard and of course the seat belts as well. Okay, so now we have a full black interior, looking fresh. Everything works. We do still have an airbag light on, along with loads of other lights, which we'll get to, but the airbag light, I think, would be to do with the rear seat belts being out. But other than that, we're making progress. Oh yeah, and we also have a strange fault, which I've not really come across before. I don't know whether this fault has occurred since I replaced the airbags or since I replaced the inner tie rod, but it's a strange fault, but I just feel like something needs to be reset. I don't think it's the clock spring because all the controls on the steering wheel do work. I can volume up, volume down, the paddles work, and everything works on the steering wheel, so the clock spring's all in good order. But check this out, I can turn 1.5 there, so, and then we go back to the center. When we're back in the center, I can turn about just over half, and there's a bit of resistance, a tiny bit of resistance, and as soon as I just go past that resistance, there we go, we get a fault for stability control, IES, adaptive dynamics fault, and ABS fault, HDC fault. A lot of faults come off when I go past that resistance, but then it will still go 1.5 turns afterwards. It's just a resistance on that point. I just can't work out what's wrong with it. But now we can move on to the cool stuff and the stuff that I've been looking forward to doing. Now what we have here is a full SVO body kit for the Range Rover. Now the Range Rover SVO body kit looks a little bit like this. Now the actual body kit wasn't expensive considering the amount of parts that you actually get with it. Around 1,500 quid, you get a front bumper, a rear bumper, a grille, side panels, and all sorts of stuff. And what's even better, everything here is all plastic, not fiberglass, because we all know how fiberglass goes. Now this would have been a nice and cheap upgrade until I had one of my thoughts. Now I could have easily bought a body kit for a 2015 Range Rover Vogue, like what I have, and it would have been a like for like swap. But instead, I bought a body kit for a 2018 Range Rover Vogue, and as you guys would know, they facelift the model in 2018, which means not only are we going to be fitting the body kit, we're also going to be facelifting it as well, which is where it gets a little expensive. So to facelift the Range Rover, of course we need to change the headlights, which we'll get onto, my worst nightmare. But before we even start attacking the headlights, we've got to get off the damaged parts, and a few bolts were a little difficult, as you can see me angle grinding them off now. I've got to remove the front bumper, which again was a pretty easy job. I'm just hoping that there's no damage behind the bumper that I didn't expect. There's a few bolts on the top of the grille that need to be removed. Once the grille's removed, there's a load of 8mm on the bumper, and once they're undone, I can pull the bumper away from the car, disconnecting the electrical connectors, the parking sensors, and the headlight washers. And luckily for me, the only damage, which I knew about before, was this front lower radiator. It's a little tatty, but it is working. It just seems the bracket that's holding it is shattered to a million pieces. And here's the new bracket, which was actually donated from a subscriber, so thanks so much for that. Okay, so the bumper is off, and luckily there doesn't seem to be any damage behind it apart from the intercooler bit, but we've sorted that now and that's all nice and secure. The intercooler is a little tatty, but it will do the job. It's not a performance car, so we'll definitely get away with that intercooler. I've never seen this before though. This looks like it electronically opens for extra cooling or something. I've never seen that before, but I'll tell you one thing, it is a good job that we are actually replacing these headlights because, well, none of the clips are intact, and that is just loose as anything. Now this is where the facelift part becomes expensive. On the newer Range Rover, they have different headlights as opposed to these ones, and apparently a different bonnet, along with different rear lights as well. And as you can imagine, the most expensive part out of all of those parts was, of course, the headlights. And believe me, I am not very happy with the price I paid for these. So these headlights are off the 2018 model, and these are brand new second-hand, and if only they just plugged in directly into the 2015 model, but they don't, and that's why I paid the price I did. So these headlights look sharper, they've got nice daytime running lights in them, and they've been opened up and rewired to hopefully plug and play directly into the 2015 model. But as I mentioned, these are not brand new headlights. And just look at all these tabs which have been sort of glued together, and well, not the nicest of finish, especially around the back here. I don't even know what's happened there. I wouldn't be so bothered, but when you spend £3,500 for a pair of headlights, you expect them to be a little bit better. Why did I even start this? So we're on to removing the remains of the old headlights. The new headlights seem to take the shape of the old front wings, so we don't need to replace the wings. It's only the bumper, bonnet and grille that needs to be replaced. The new headlight just slots back into place and uses all the original mounts. And look at the difference. Completely modernising the front of the Range Rover. One more headlight to go. And now with both headlights in, there's a little wiring trickery that needs to be done. There's no instructions with these headlights. I'm just taking a guess here and hoping it'll work. There's a 2-pin connector which connects to the left headlight, which goes all the way along and then connects to a 2-pin connector on the right hand side headlight. And then we have this wire here, a red fused wire, and then a blue connector and a red connector. The blue connector connects into the left hand side headlight, the red connector connects into the right hand side headlight, and then I'm assuming the red wire which is fused just goes to a live cable. And the only live cable that I can clearly see, which is obvious, is the little positive battery terminal thing at the front of the engine. So I'm just going to temporarily connect it up to there first, just to see if everything works. And then we can sort a permanent connection out. That is looking sick. Like, the headlights make such a huge difference to a car. Now we've just got to find out whether it works. We've got the most sketchiest wiring possible onto the positive part, but I just want to see whether it works. And if it does, then we can wire it in properly. Let's find out. Yes. Where's indicators? Is that working? Oh, I can see it. Yes. Full beat. Come on. Yes. What a result. Now it's time to mount it permanently. Under that battery terminal connector, there is a stud and a nut. So I'm going to undo that nut, wire in a little circular connector, I'm not sure what they're actually called, slot that over the stud, and then bolt it all to it permanently and hide it all away so it looks neat. Once that's all on, I can bolt the battery terminal piece down and you wouldn't even know it was there. Time to hide all the wiring. I'm going to use some loom tape on the other part of the wiring just to neaten it up a bit. Tuck it all underneath the trims and job is a good one. And there we go, the new headlights in, the expensive headlights in. You wouldn't even know that there was all wiring tucked under this, apart from this fused wire here, which sits nicely into this little box there, but it all works. Now I was told by the guy who sold me this kit that if I was doing a facelift conversion, I'd also need a new bonnet, and at first I couldn't really work out why I'd need a new bonnet. Looking at the newer one to this one, the bonnet looks exactly the same. But check this out, when you close the bonnet here, you can see it is coming a tad too short. So the actual bonnet is meant to sit on this lip here. When you push down the bonnet, it is quite a bit shorter on both sides. So, I mean, I can only see the difference is going to be a tiny bit of length, unless something on the grille is different.